the Middle-Aged Bodcast. Getting older, but having some laughs.
Well, welcome to the Middle-Aged Bodcast with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shalano.
T.A., this is a special bonus podcast and also the return of one of your favourites, I know, Monday Night Podcast.
Monday Night Podcast is back, Rich, by popular demand.
Popular demand of you, T.A.?
Well, only because the Monday Night Podcast last time seemed to go quite well. And now, obviously, you know, we do spend a lot of time in the studio as well. So the virtual ones are a little bit different. Monday Night Podcast just works in a way that Monday Night Football never really did. So yeah, we're back.
We are back, and we're doing this primarily because we went to our first ever podcasting conference quite recently, and we thought we can't really go without actually referencing it. UniPodFest 2025 in Birmingham.
Yeah, it was a good day, that wasn't it? It's quite interesting.
It was a really good day. I want to just start by us saying this episode is not being sponsored by the organisers or anything like that. This is literally just our thoughts on the event. The event was brought to us by Sound Truism and Birmingham City University. As I say, they're not involved in this in any way. We're not being paid to promote it. None of that sort of stuff. We just thought we'd talk about it because we had a really good day. So we thought we'd give you our experiences. And if you are thinking of attending UniPodFest 2026 or any other podcast conferences out there, kind of give you our sort of thoughts on being at one.
I know. Yeah, it was a different day. And Rich, I hope you don't mind me pointing out at this that you were on full-on promotional mode, going pre-prepared with a handful of middle-aged podcast coasters to give out to other people at the conference, which was met with, I think, a mixture of surprise and in some cases sort of like, really, I can keep this, which I thought was quite heartening, actually.
Yeah, I thought so. It was really interesting. Like we obviously, for a bit of background, we made ourselves some coasters just for a laugh, and then went, "This is a really good." Well, Mrs. Shalano kind of pointed out she wanted one. Then we had like other people go in; they wanted one as well. So for all our friends' 40th recently, we've been giving them coasters, and then it was like, well, actually, we're going to this conference. This is a good shout. We should take it. So we did a slight variant with a QR code on there. Took that with us, and yeah, it went down really well. So that was really good.
I like the idea that there's going to be sort of middle-aged podcast coasters knocking about in different places where someone's going to be, "What's that? Where have you got that from?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, these two random blokes approached me at a conference and sort of told me that they got this middle-aged podcast and gave me a coaster, and then asked me if I wanted to be on their podcast."
Well, we actually have another interesting story now because we were invited on a podcast as well, which I am hoping was a genuine offer, and we will bring that back up.
Well, hopefully so. I mean, he may have felt slightly obliged after we went, you know, wonderful to hear you speak at the conference, take our coaster, hey, you should be a guest. And then he's like, "Hey, you could be a guest on mine." And we're like, yeah, that's, you know, very kind offer. But yeah, that's the whole thing. It's a networking event as well. I mean, as much
100%.
as we talk about that event and the different things, you know, that come out of it as we talk about it in this particular episode, but obviously networking within podcasting is, you know, we've obviously done a lot of that kind of more on the online space, I suppose, more so than going to something in person was a completely different experience.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a great way to sort of connect with people and get some hints and tips about podcasting. And one thing I will say, actually, because I think we've said this before, there are some people who go, "Well, wait a minute, it's just talking," or, you know, you just kind of saying a load of nonsense, and who are you actually talking to? Like, who's listening and whatnot? Nobody there had any kind of, there was no kind of preconceived ideas about anyone. Like, everyone was treated equally. It didn't matter how well known your podcast was. Even some people were there who hadn't got a podcast. They just wanted to get ideas and advice because they wanted to start one. And I thought that was really cool. I thought it was just really good as a sort of overall event. cannot fault it. I thought the facilities were fantastic as well. That like, I want to say auditorium, but like that room that we were in for most of the event itself was absolutely spectacular.
I think it's fair to call it an auditorium. Actually, it was a great facility, and I think you're right about the different things people were doing as well. I know there was some breakout sessions, and you and I split obviously up to go to different sessions so we could maximise the opportunity. And certainly going and listening to one where people were actually pitching things that they were either doing or wanted to do was really interesting. There was some, really great ideas. Again, just obviously not famous people, nothing like that. The amount of independent podcasts that there are, and with people doing genuinely useful things to improve their own life or other people's lives and things like that. It was quite inspiring. I found. So I resisted the temptation to jump up and say, "Hi, I'm from the Middle Age Podcast." I thought, let's just listen to what other people have got going on. And there was some great stuff. Some things, to be fair, which actually connected a little bit into the podcast as well, in terms of sort of physical and mental well-being in their own ways. Which, again, you and I then, connected with some people in between sessions to have a chat about some of that, which again was really useful, and just a great opportunity to do something different, and well worth it.
Let's kind of just break it down a little bit, because it was, there was a lot of panels. One was about women in podcasting and trying to promote female voices as hosts of podcasts, and also as guests as well, I think. And what I did find interesting about that particular panel was they actually did mention that obviously in the celebrity space and the influencer space, there's a lot of female podcasters. But there's not really a lot of that in the independent podcasting space. I've found a few female independent podcasters around when I've been looking online. For example, there's one called Stacey's Parlor, and it's a fellow Brummie, and she talks about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles a lot. I mean, that's definitely the kind of podcast that's up my street. But what I found from this panel that was on, they just seemed to have a really good opinion of sort of what could be done and how it could be helped. I ended up actually getting interviewed by somebody who was in the audience as well, randomly. That was quite a strange experience, especially when I had to refer to myself as Raging Rich of the Middle Age Podcast.
But also, didn't she give you like this weird microphone thing that you had to use as well?
Yeah.
To sound, to take the sound.
She did, and I loved the part where she said to me, "Well, you've used one of these before, haven't you?" And I was like, "Well, no, because we're never out and about podcasting or that kind of thing. We're always like in a studio or a virtual environment. We never like hold it." She's like, "We've seen them on YouTube, haven't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but the YouTubers don't know how to use them half the time."
I think the interesting thing about that as well, when we looked at the session around sort of women with podcasting, we realised that actually, in terms of guest episodes we'd done, we'd actually interviewed more women than men at a ratio of about 2-1.
Yes.
And not by design, which I think was a really interesting thing. In
That's
terms
what led
of that
to me
we
getting
had
interviewed as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it was kind of going into, she was doing some sort of like study, wasn't she, for university or something like that about it and whatnot. So that was an interesting reflection that even from our point of view, where we've interviewed various guests, through various means of our booking system, for want of a better phrase for guest episodes, that we have strangely ended up with a much higher rate of women guests, and actually had some really, really good episodes. So I think it was interesting where you look at that thing where they're saying to some degree in some parts of the market may feel more male dominated, and certainly there's some of the more higher earning podcasts, I suppose, within the sort of celebrity mass market, ones that do jump out seem to be more male dominated. So that was an interesting one. When you go to something when there's an all female panel talking about it as well, from various organisations and whatnot, when we've kind of been doing an independent podcast, and that's how we've ended up dealing with it. So yeah, that was one of my key reflections from certainly that session.
Some of the people that were actually on that panel were independent podcasters as well, weren't they? But a few of, I think definitely one of them worked for Amazon in some shape or form at one point. I think she also had her own podcast independently. But that was really interesting. And of course, then that was followed up with another brilliant discussion, actually, which featured two people who had done a audio documentary called The Lost Archives of James Baldwin. And this was Dr. Tony Phillips and the award-winning sound designer, Axel Kakuti. And they did this absolutely fantastic bit where they were sat opposite each other and sort of talking about the documentary. And what was really interesting, James Baldwin, an African-American writer and civil rights activist, and he died in 1987. And it turned out that his brother, after James died, his brother had met this woman who was British, but they were living in France. And his brother actually had all this memorabilia, all these things. And he said to the lady that he was living with, got all this stuff, you've got to make sure you look after it. And they went and they actually were pitching two people to sort of build this documentary around. One was someone who, when she was younger, had actually interacted with James Baldwin. And the other was obviously the partner of his brother, who'd never actually met James Baldwin. And they ended up speaking to the brother's partner because her story was much more interesting. And that's something, certainly, it just blew my mind as they were talking about it, even when they were talking about like the sound design and things like that.
And that was aided as well by the setup of that auditorium, if you like, in terms of the way they'd sort of seated, or the panel. I think some of the panels obviously stood, but where they were doing more of that kind of interaction between two people seated in the middle of the room, you kind of feel like you're almost watching in on a conversation between two people that doesn't feel like then there's a room full of people around them, it was always quite an interesting thing just to watch that. Yeah, you kind of think, oh, if I was sat there, how would you approach that? I suppose in terms of there's a room full of people, but you're almost, irrespective of them being there, it's just you and the person opposite you talking about it. And they obviously played some clips and stuff. So that was interesting.
So after that, we had a third panel, which was hosted by Jenny Becker, who hosts the Sliding Doors podcast. It's kind of, well, as it says on the tin, a sliding doors kind of scenario, much like the movie, for anyone who's seen the film, where kind of, do you make the train or do you not make the train? And your life changes depending on what happens. That kind of concept to the podcast. But yeah, she hosted the panel, which was fantastic. And there were a few people on that panel who we ended up speaking to, a couple of them actually. We ended up speaking to a gentleman named Sam Sethi, and he is the CEO of True Fans and co-host of Pod News Weekly Review. And he was talking quite a lot about AI in podcasting, but not in terms of generating episodes and things, although that is something that's out there. He was talking more about how you can help get your podcast heard by people, and that searching is going to go away from sort of the standardized Google model that we have at the moment, kind of moving more towards AI search. And that's certainly something very powerful, and it could be a really cool thing in the future. So that was something. And then, of course, we had the gentleman that we mentioned a little bit earlier as well there, Tia.
Yes, indeed. Kobe Omenaka.
Kobe is the co-host of the FlixWatcher podcast. Yeah, the panel ended and we were sort of talking, weren't we? And we're going, well, we've given this one coaster to someone who sat next to us because he was kind of talking to us. And we're like, oh, we should give him a coaster. He didn't even have his own podcast or anything. And we were like, well, we ought to try and give it to some of the people on the panel and sort of chat with them a bit, because we'd been struggling in sort of getting feedback on episodes and things like that, haven't we? So we spoke to Kobe and he gave us some really good advice. He gave us some tips on things that we could be doing built around the coasters, which was a great plan. So we need to have a look into that. But yeah, he did say as well, potentially about the idea of us going on to FlixWatcher, which we would love to do. So Kobe, if you are listening, we would love to accept that offer. And we did mention to you as well at the time that we would love to have you on the Middle Age Bodcast. So yeah, that offer is right back at you as well. We would love to have you here on the podcast and be able to chat with you and get your experience on podcasting. And yeah, I mean, we talked to Sam, as I say, and we got the idea of what he was working on. Some of the things he was doing was just incredible, quite groundbreaking in the world of podcasting, I think, and helping to elevate independent podcasters. So yeah, really, really enjoyed that panel. And then, of course, TA, after a little break for some food, it was time for the breakout sessions. And we did go to separate ones.
We did indeed. I certainly went to go and listen to a lady who'd worked for the BBC and was now working for another organisation, delivering sort of real life podcasting type series. And she talked about producing a series essentially about somebody who'd been sexually abused by their teacher, but it was actually a man being abused by a female, and so it went into all of the production of that and how that had worked out and whatnot. So that was quite an interesting dynamic. I think the organisation was Tortoise Media.
Tortoise Media, yeah, I've just seen
I
that.
think it was, yeah. But I think the lady had worked for the BBC previously.
Yeah,
So that was an
Chloe.
interesting.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting talk. Obviously different to what I suppose a lot of podcasting is. In terms of it's more like a production, isn't it? Like a documentary series.
Kind of like a mini series of podcasting.
Yeah, but in real life sort of stories. I mean, obviously we've done real life episode interviews with people with experiences, whereas this is kind of set over, I think, a number of episodes, and they kind of, structure that together more like a documentary miniseries, as you say, which was interesting. And then at that moment you were elsewhere.
Yeah, I was in the audio session getting some tips on how to improve your audio using AI techniques. That was hosted by a lady called Lisa. She was absolutely fantastic. She gave some really good advice. We actually put some of that to the test the other day while we were recording some interviews for season 4. And I think that really did help. So she gave some really good advice there, not only about using sort of software tools, but also like the room, how to set up your room for recording, how to do quite a few little things like that. So yeah, I thought that was a fantastic session, and there were a lot of people there who did kind of a similar sort of setup to us, using the same sort of products to record and things like that. So yeah, and actually, as a random kind of thing, like I'm sat here with a pair of headphones on, as are you, as we're chatting. Obviously, when we're both in the studio, we tend to chat to guests and whatnot without headphones on, and that kind of was brought into the conversation. And so just learning little things like that we hadn't thought of, and going, oh, actually that's a really good point, and things that we can adapt as we go on with recording and help improve the podcast and the quality of recordings as we continue on.
We've done different things, Rich. I think that's the thing as well, looking back over this, obviously a bonus episode that's kind of going out after the end of season 3. Our finale of that has just gone out. We're sort of reflecting now back as well on, what we've learned, I suppose, across 3 seasons and 30 odd episodes now of doing this, and how that's changed and evolved as well, and how you learn as you go. And I think that was a theme of the day as well, wasn't it? That, it's not about going out to try and be absolutely amazing from the beginning at something. It's being able to develop as you go and evolve through a process, which is very much what we've kind of been doing with this podcast. And it's gone, in sort of a myriad of ways, which is great, really. And some of the episodes we've got that have gone out, some of the guest ones have obviously been great. And there's even been a few of just me and you that people have liked.
It's very true. It's very true.
So that was good.
Yeah, well, we did that session, and then obviously there was another session afterwards. My session was actually with some people who'd done some work for BBC Sounds, and it was probably actually more for younger people who were at the conference to kind of give them some advice and some inspiration for a career. But I saw BBC Sounds, and when we were actually booking the sessions, I remember there was a lady stood by us who said, oh, one of my colleagues is running that session, which is partly what inspired me to go to it. And it was really good, actually. They'd both won some awards and won some plaudits through different things they were working on. What was yours? I think was the pitching.
So I was one of, I talked about sort of
that you mentioned
pitching, yeah.
And then, with about 5 minutes to go in these workshops, an alarm sounded, something along the lines of, attention, there has been an incident, you need to evacuate the building immediately, which everybody did.
And I'll be honest, Rich, I've never felt so old in my life, because obviously it was at a university. So you and I sort of looked like, I don't know about mature students, but certainly felt my age standing outside. in the sort of the zone of the where you go for the fire drill or whatever.
Well, that of course meant that we could potentially have fallen behind, but they did not let that happen. So we went back in and basically got told, go back into the Hive, which is the auditorium room that we mentioned. And we went back in for the headline speaker, which was Kelechi Okafor. So Kelechi was fantastic. She's very outspoken about certain things, but she was hilarious. I thought she was absolutely brilliant. She does talk a lot about standing by your beliefs and sticking to your morals. And she actually at one point mentioned some sponsors that she had that because they went against her morals, she just dropped them. And it was financially not great for her, but she had to find other ways then to support some of the projects she was doing. And I thought that was absolutely incredible. I thought, yeah, she just had some really good words of advice. I actually saw TA as well. She was on the telly the day after. She was on the BBC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was on something on the BBC the next day. So, yeah, really, really interesting.
I mean, my reflection, I have to say, was, of course, she was talking about as well, she's also an author, which, obviously resonated with me. And then she talked about a book involving sort of robot hybrids. And I'm thinking, hang on a second. Yes, I've got that market covered.
I'll have you know, TA, she did also mention that one of the characters in that book gets superpowers. That's definitely not in your book.
No, there's very much more for you, I would suggest, the superpowers hybrids. But that was interesting as well. So obviously, it's not just, as you pointed out to me, TA, you're not the only person writing about robots and hybrid robot. And I'm like, I wasn't suggesting that, but I wasn't expecting that at that point. Of like, that was where it's going to go. So,
I also just want to give a massive shout out to the host of the day, which was Melzy J, who has a podcast called Make Sense with Melzy. She's been podcasting for about as long as us. I think maybe a little bit longer than us, from what I could see. But yeah, she's actually doing a live show in Birmingham soon, which I noticed the other day. So things seem to be going well for her as well. So as I say, there's some really good podcasting people out there, some great opportunities. And as I say, we enjoyed it. There was some great networking opportunities. We did give some coasters to people. If you had one of our coasters, we hope you enjoyed it and, you're using it, whether it's to put your beer on or to scan the QR code and join us here.
Well, hopefully. I'm hoping they're not just sort of been, put away to one side or cast aside. That would be quite sad.
It would be a
and
terrible.
if you don't want them, they do cost money. So please return them. And we'll give them to a new loving home.
I will say though, I did really enjoy it and I would go again. I think that was sort of the takeaway that I had. I'd do it again next year. Obviously it was a local conference for us, so it was one that wasn't too bad for us to get to and get back from. But yeah, it was a really, really fun day. And for something where I don't know how you sort of felt about it prior to us going, but I was a little bit anxious as to like, are we going to go and there's going to be these people that are, they've got all these great podcasts going on they've had for years and all this stuff, and they're going, what, you've only had it for a few months, less than a year. And nothing like that at all. And the fact that it wasn't just for the students at the university either, it was for the general public. Obviously there were some students there who were kind of getting advice. I think more so the workshops. It seemed like there were people in the workshops that hadn't been to the rest of the day. So I don't know if maybe they'd open those up to get advice to the students as well.
Yeah, because I think the overarching day, certainly there was, for the most part, probably a more mature audience actually for a large part of that day, which made us feel slightly better until the fire drill. I would suggest that we weren't the oldest person or people there, even if the person booking us in was their 18th birthday, I think, which most definitely, the beginning of the day when we were checking into the event and registering. It was their 18th birthday. I mean, that really did, again, make me feel terribly, terribly old. But, what can you say? Here we are. We couldn't be doing the middle-aged podcast if we were 18, could we?
Well,
so
exactly.
There we go. So every cloud.
But I have to say, TA, as I say, I really did enjoy it. Would do it again.
Okay. Yep.
I think, get some more coasters next time is probably the...
And Rich, obviously, I cannot. It's obviously off the topic of the event, but I cannot obviously let this slide in the timeline of recording. Is that yesterday was the finale of my 100-day marathon writing challenge, which
Yes,
I
well done.
completed at the Writers HQ retreat in Birmingham. And I have finished with 51,265 words for the 100 days. And today is the first day then suddenly of me not writing. So it's a good job you booked me in for Monday Night Podcast to give me something else to think about instead of doing things. I mean, I'm grateful for the rest of the writing, but I will need to obviously dip straight back into that fairly sharpish to carry on what I need to be doing with refining some of that. But yeah, that was a great reflection as well on doing different things and setting yourself challenges. But us going to the conference and doing all these different things and episodes and put your mind to these things. Who knows what you can do? So yeah, thrilled with that. And and this is the first of, I think it's 3 bonus episodes that we're doing, different topics. But
Yes, let's touch on that a little bit. We will be doing something a little bit different over the next few weeks. So the next episode that you should be getting will be a repost of our episode on the Doctor's Hidden Patients from season 1, where I spoke to TA about the creation of the book and all of the ideas and sort of the creative process behind that. So that's going to be getting released on the 29th of April. On the 6th of May, you will get a brand new episode, a bonus episode, and that is going to be, would you like to reveal for us, please, TA?
it's me. I'm going to be reading chapter 1 of The Doctor's Hidden Patients. Quite what voice I'll be doing that in, I'm not yet sure. Is it going to be in my voice, The Doctor's Hidden Patients? Will it be in some sort of The Doctor's Hidden Patients? I don't know. What are we going to do? How do we do a palatable audio voice for that? So that's what we're hoping to do with that, which will be good.
So yeah, that's going to be kind of like a bit of an audiobook teaser, if you will. So we're trying it out just to see really how sort of the Doctor's Hidden Patients works as a bit of an audiobook, I suppose, isn't it? And sort of give people a preview of it as part of the middle-aged podcast as well.
Yeah, and then to top off these bonus episodes, Rich.
Well, yes, another repost. We will be reposting season 1's episode on Bliss Revisited, which was the short film that TA and I wrote many years ago. And we obviously spoke about that, the ideas behind it, its similarities to a TV show called Girls Five Other. And that's certainly, well, that's been cancelled since. So there's room for Bliss now. That can come back. But
Meredith Scardino may have other ideas.
Very true. That'll be on the 13th of May. On the 20th of May, however, TA, what are we bringing as our follow-up to that repost?
Is us sort of essentially looking at what we would do with a modernised version of Bliss Revisited, and you and I talking through our ideas of what that might look like.
And the tentative title for that episode of Bliss Revisited, Revisited.
Yeah.
We're really original here on the podcast.
Creative imagination is required. Could have gone with what? More bliss, extra bliss, blissful.
There was a lot of things that could have been going in there. We may change the title by the time it goes live. And then the big news. We are bringing you an extended season 4 of the Middle-Aged Podcast. We are not bringing you a trailer prior to season 4. No. On the 27th of May, we are bringing you the first episode of season 4. And let's just say, TA, this is a really good one.
Yes. This is quite something. And totally unexpected, completely what we were not thinking might happen. You cannot believe who we've got as a guest. We are not going to tell you now. You got to stay tuned, but it is massively exciting.
And so, yeah, that's May 27th. Season 4 will kick off, and this extended edition of season 4 will end on the 12th of August the day before the first anniversary of the Middle-Aged Bodcast. So that episode on the 12th of August will be our 1-year anniversary special episode that we're going to be bringing to you.
Amazing. Can't believe it.
So yes, we have got a lot of guests planned. We have also got more episodes, obviously, of just myself and TA. But yes, season 4 will be with you on the 27th of May. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the podcast audience?
Another Monday night podcast is done. Yeah, I think it's shaping up quite nicely, the schedule leading up to the 1-year anniversary, which is great. So really looking forward to some of the episodes coming up.
Me too. Really looking forward to it. It should be a great time. And yes, season 4 coming a little bit sooner than you may have expected. So yes, really excited. Looking forward to it. And then obviously celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. And who knows, maybe beyond. Well, thank you very much, TA. Thank you for a great season 3. Obviously, we completed that. This is obviously a standalone episode. So that is it for Monday Night Podcast. We will potentially be back for another Monday Night Podcast before we start season 4. However, just wanted to say massive thank you yet again to my good friend and co-host, TA Shalano, and to all of the podcasters out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rage and Rich.
Two best mates, yeah, they take you to stand. Rachel, Rich, and TA got your health in the hands. Williams, laughs, and tales they tell. For beats and nights, the workouts, they're keeping it real. Oh!